Hello and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the roundup of foundation Fabza flushes 2022. Before I start the main portion of the video, I just would like to say a massive thank you for watching. It has been a pleasure as always. Thank you so much for the love and support, for all the comments, all the likes, all the new subscriptions. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But if you would like to see what's the best and what's the worst from this year's foundation Fabza flushes, then all you have to do is keep on watching. So I've made notes, I've been watching my own videos and kind of reliving all these foundations. We started off the foundation Fabza flushes this year with the Revolution IRL in real life filter foundation for $9.99, and the coverage was decent. It promised to be medium to buildable coverage, and it did live up to that claim. I rated it 4 out of 5 for coverage. The finish was actually quite nice, but it did not powder well at all, so I gave it a 3 out of 5. The longevity wise, it just didn't feel right, it didn't look right almost immediately. Like I said, it didn't powder well, and it separated after 2 hours and looked very like almost dotty, and I rated it 2 out of 5 for longevity. The biggest thing for me was it promised to have 20% more pigment, and yet initially when you apply it you're like, oh, full coverage, but once you blend it out it's actually not. The second foundation I'm really pleased I threw in there because I actually really liked the foundation overall, and it used to be my one of my favorites, the OG Fenty Beauty Pro Filter long wearing foundation. I have it here, I'm wearing it today actually. The Pro Filter Soft Matte Long Wear Foundation. For coverage I rated it 4 out of 5 because it is more of like a lighter medium, but it does build really nice, and it builds to almost like a high coverage. I don't think you'll be able to get like a full coverage from this, and maybe even if you do it wouldn't look very nice, but like it does build to like a solid coverage where you wouldn't be able to see your spots. You know, I have various spots right here and it does cover them quite well. For longevity I rated it 4 out of 5 because of the slight separation. After a while my oils just didn't combine with the foundation, it started breaking it down, and I had that sort of spotty effect, but it was like I could combat that with blotting. That's why I rated it more than I did with the previous foundation. It lasted a whole day, it lasted throughout a nap, and it looked really nice. So yeah, 4 out of 5 for longevity. The finish is one of my absolute favorite finishes, where it's demi matte. It just looks like skin, where it like the lights, I've got really strong lights, and obviously there's some like reflection happening, but that's what your natural skin does, and I love that kind of finish. So I actually ended up rating it 5 out of 5 for finish. Next we had the Lasting Finish Rimmel Powder Foundation that I was so afraid to try out, but I am so pleased that I did, because this was one of my favorites. Spoiler alert, I know. For coverage I rated it 4 out of 5 because it was medium coverage. It actually ended up building, if I remember correctly, and it just overall, like, it promised to be medium coverage and it was, and it built. And is there any more that I could want from it? Probably, because I rated it 4 out of 5, but you know. Anyway, longevity wise it didn't combat my oils, but because it was a powder it actually started looking like a liquid foundation after a couple of hours, so I had that time for my sebum to sort of mix with the foundation. It looked beautiful. after a couple of hours because, like I said, it looked like a liquid foundation. What I really liked about it is that it almost gave me like a smoothing effect, especially in comparison to the foundation I used the following week, which I will talk about in a minute, which is why for finish I rated it 4, even though it was slightly powdery looking at first. Obviously it's a powder, so it's hard to judge that, especially for a person who doesn't like that look. Like, the foundation stayed on despite blotting and stuff, so I really liked that. Overall 4. Next foundation I tried out was the KVD Lock-It Powder Foundation. That was £28. KVD had some big shoes to fill because I liked the lasting finish from Rimmel so much, and you could tell, like, when I was making the video, I was like, ugh, it already wasn't like, the minute I put it on, it wasn't impressing me. And to be fair, the biggest disadvantage was the sponge that they provided. I did use my own sponge after, and that ended up giving me like a smoother, lighter, just better finish than that porous, really cheap sponge that they gave. The coverage was medium, actually quite similar to the Rimmel. The difference to me was that sort of smoothing effect. I think Rimmel does that a little bit better. Longevity, again, it was just so dry in comparison to Rimmel. And like I've mentioned at one point in the series, I did choose the foundations this year for me to be able to sort of compare them. So the first 2 had the name filt'r in it. The second 2 were both powder foundations. The third 2 had the name second and double, so like the number 2. Like, I tried to make them work together so it's easier for me to compare, basically. Rimmel did look dry, but it looked smooth, and it looked like it needed like a setting spray maybe, whereas KVD made me look like I have dry, flaky skin. Two completely different things. With Rimmel, it just took time to like get warmed up on the face and look nice, whereas KVD, even though that did happen, it made me feel awful at first. Like, I put it on and I was like, I hate how this looks, I hate how it felt on the skin. For finish, I gave it a 2. What I hated as well, and you know how important that thing is to me, it made me really patchy and my bronzer did not look flawless. And you know how much I love bronzer, you know how much I love contouring and bronzing and just looking bronzed, and I wasn't able to do that. It's like, my forehead usually with even the cheapest foundation looks beautiful, and it didn't. What I do like about this brand though, and this is a huge for me personally, is that they are vegan and they are promoting like reusable packaging. Like, you don't have to pay for packaging twice, you can just get the actual product that you need. Do you see what I mean? So I really like that. It's a shame the product inside doesn't work for me, but I'm all for that. And I do like the effort they put in their product design. I don't want to make this video too long, so let me speed up my thought process. 17 Cosmetics, thank you so much, Sarah, for letting me know. I had no idea this is actually an old brand that has been discontinued and then revamped, that if I understood your comment correctly. It's a nice everyday foundation for me. It did not combat my oils, but it was particularly, that was a heat wave that I tested that foundation out on that day. It was so hot, and the fact that it even stayed on my face was surprising. The biggest thing for me was the price of £5, because the coverage, even though it was light, more like a BB cream, I actually really liked how it made my skin look. It made my skin look nice and fresh and slightly smoothing, and it, to me, it's like a very good light foundation or a good solid BB cream. I gave it a 3 for longevity because after a whole day in a heat wave, it was still on my face. My face didn't look great because I was super oily and sweaty, and yeah, but it actually looked really, really nice, and it gradually came off. It wasn't just like big patches of redness or whatever. It actually like faded as I was blotting throughout the day. And the finish, like I've mentioned, it just made my skin look fresh and smoothing and stuff. So I actually gave it a 4 out of 5 for the finish. The week after that, we had what I was super excited for, the Estee Lauder Double Wear Nude Foundation, because it's quite controversial that I'm not the biggest fan of the original. To me, the original is just super dry, a bit like the KVD foundation, where it just looks so dry. I mean, KVD took it to a next level, but like, it just looks dry, it just looks dehydrated, and it gives me almost like a pulling sensation. If you have dry skin, you'll know that pulling sensation. That's what it feels like on an oily skinned person's face. It didn't have as much coverage as the original, but it was like a nice medium coverage, and it built, which I was really excited by. I just wasn't blown away by it immediately, so I gave it a 4 out of 5. The finish was breathtaking in a way. It was almost glowy, and the longer I just sat there, it was getting more and more glowy. I would ideally need like a Franken foundation where I mix the two, because I need that little bit of glow, but I also need it to be like demi matte. So I think mixing the two would be a good idea. Let me know if you're up for like seeing that. And it looked okay after a nap. So for longevity, I give it a 3 because it did come off. It did start wearing off a lot quicker than the original. In fact, it didn't last nowhere near as well as the original, but I think that's due to the finish and it being more glowy. The biggest sort of factor as well for me is the price. It's quite expensive at £34, and it doesn't come with a pump, and made me feel quite wasteful, because if you tip that product out on a palette, you can't like then tip it back in. So you would need to go out of your way to purchase a pump, so you're not wasteful, and like that should be included in the price. Let's move on. Revolution drops. I was so excited for this, but I was so unbelievably disappointed. The coverage on this was light, maybe a medium after I built it, but I can't see the world where this builds to like a high coverage or a full coverage. I rated it 2 out of 5 for coverage. Longevity, surprisingly, it was not bad. It held up okay, but it didn't look very nice. And the reason why it didn't look very nice is because WTF, why was it not matte? I read the description to you guys, and I mean, we read it together, and it said it was going to be matte coverage. Where was not matte coverage? It said it was meant to be matte finish. Where was that matte finish? That was like a glowy central. I don't mind that, don't get me wrong. And did it powder nicely? I do think it powdered quite nicely, but like, why promise a matte finish when it's nowhere near a matte finish? Like this demi matte finish, you could call that a matte finish and people being like, oh, but it's like a natural matte finish. That's fine. Like, if it's closer to being matte than glowy, then fair enough, but like that was like glowy. Like if there's a spectrum between matte and glowy, it was definitely a lot like heading towards glowy than matte. So I rated it 2 out of 5. The Revolution drops, not for me. Last but not least, the Shiseido Self-Refreshing Foundation. Let me say, £40, and you'll know my attitude towards that foundation. If you haven't seen the video, I highly recommend. It is a very good foundation, a wonderful coverage, because you can get like a light coverage with a brush, which I loved. It looked beautiful. You can get a medium coverage and it builds to like a solid high coverage. If a foundation is able to do those 3 different coverages, like you are getting your money's worth, you'd think. But the longevity was not that great. It was okay. It wasn't anything outside the norm. I did have to blot. I did crease. It was just very average when it came to longevity. There are foundations at a similar price point and you are getting that, like you can tell the pigments there, they are doing something with their technology or whatever to make it like last and solid and good. But with this one, you just can't. And what really ruined it for me is the lack of shade range. I mean, I know I said in the video it's okay, but then I had a look at the actual shades. There was a good amount of choice for people with mild shade range, and there was maybe like 5, yeah, I'd say about 5 darker shades. We don't do that no more. What I didn't like about it as well, I just remembered, is the feeling of like oiliness under my skin. I know it's like self-refreshing, but does that mean me constantly feeling the oiliness on my skin? Maybe. But yeah. We are almost at the end, you guys. I'm going to make it short and sweet. The most long-lasting foundation for me was either the Fenty Beauty Pro Filter foundation, this baby, or the Rimmel powder foundation. Despite it sort of being glowy throughout the day and stuff, I actually think it held up quite well. I couldn't make my mind on that one because they did get the same sort of rating, and they do both last quite a long time. Fenty probably just a smidge bit more. For best finish, it's a toss between Fenty and the Shiseido foundation. Fenty doesn't need powdering, which probably for me is a little bit better, but then Shiseido, it looked so beautiful, like just so smooth and flawless after it's been powdered. Even before powdering, it looked quite nice. I just needed to powder it because I have oily skin, but like it just looks so pretty. So again, quite a hard one for me. Probably would have chosen Fenty because me and powder aren't best friends. The reason why I would choose best finish for Fenty is because best coverage was definitely Shiseido, and that is because, again, those 3 different coverage you were able to achieve with just one foundation. And if you'd like to know, from best to worst, Fenty takes place number 1 at 13 out of 15 points. Rimmel with 12. Shiseido did get 13, but I did deduct a point with the shade range. It's probably a toss between Shiseido and Rimmel at a second place, but I gave it to Rimmel purely because I'm actually quite impressed that the powder foundation impressed me so much. And then it's the Estee Lauder Double Wear Nude Foundation with 11 points, followed by 17 Cosmetics with 10 points, and the last 3 are a total miss, total pass. Do not get these, like do not get these. Revolution IRL filter with 9 points, KVD Lock-It Powder Foundation with 9 points as well. And a complete utter fail for me, the Revolution Pro Drops with 7 points overall. That is it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching the series, this final video. I'm so excited for next year. I'm already like excited to try different foundations. If you have more foundations that you'd like me to try, make sure to leave your suggestions down below. They can be as expensive as you like. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video and the series. If you did, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. But for now, thank you so much for watching. You are the best, and I hope to see you next time.